Question number 2, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement that, quote, that New Zealand, quotes, shouldn't be a leader in climate change, end quotes, given that New Zealand was awarded the Fossil of the Day award following his speech on the first day of the Paris climate talks?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, New Zealand is committed to doing its fair share on climate change. But the cost of a further reduction in carbon emissions is more expensive for New Zealand than for any other developed country. Overall leadership needs to be provided by the major emitting nations of the world. New Zealand provides leadership in areas where we deliver the most impact, such as research into agricultural emissions, support of our Pacific neighbours, and leading the charge on reform of fossil fuel subsidies.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why is he being a fossil fool by proposing only an 11% reduction in CO2 emissions, while people who take climate change seriously, such as the EU and the New Zealand Labour Party, are proposing a 40% reduction?
That's right. The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, because we're reasonable and pragmatic and we set targets we would expect to be able to achieve. Any number of targets can be set over the next 20 or 30 years, but we are practical about what can be achieved and take a balanced approach. What happened to him?
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why is he embarrassing New Zealand on the world stage by saying we should reduce per person emissions only a quarter as quickly as Europe?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I don't think there's any embarrassment whatsoever. New Zealand has been a long-time participant in the global discussions about climate change. We have credible targets that take into account the real cost to our economy. I mean, if the Labour Party want to get up and say they're going to shut down all the major emitters, the aluminium smelter, New Zealand Steel and the refinery, then they're welcome to do so, but we don't agree with that approach.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why won't he follow Labour's lead, match Europe's proposal and make a real commitment to tackle climate change? Why are you sticking your head in the sand?
The order. The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, because in general, following Labour's lead would lead to 30% support among the public and a lot of contradictory and difficult policies.
Supplementary.
Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Given his government's claims about being concerned by climate change, why is his government spending more on subsidising foreign oil companies than on climate change research?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, that is rubbish. With respect to the statements that have been made about fossil fuel subsidies, the World Wildlife Fund assessment is based on what one would describe as fine-grained interpretations about tax law, that is the treatment of development expenditure, as to whether it's capitalised or deductible. The assessment done by APEC and one other international body say New Zealand has no fossil fuel subsidies. The Labour Party should be supporting New Zealand's effort to lead the reform of fossil fuel subsidies around the world, because if all countries eliminated the subsidies, we'd reduce carbon output by 12%.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
When the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment says rising sea levels will cause billions of dollars of damage, does he really think that $20 million a year for research is an adequate response?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, New Zealand has committed itself to research related to livestock emissions, because that is a unique aspect of our carbon emission profile. And we've had international success in attracting the interest and the funding of a range of countries. That's been a very successful exercise. But I don't know of any research program that is based around the idea it's going to be able to prevent rise in ocean levels. We focus on researching where we can have an impact.
Dealing with the issue. Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
When future generations ask what he did to tackle climate change, will he proudly say, I took greenhouse emissions to record levels, or I gutted the emissions trading scheme, or I failed to get agriculture to get cleaner, or I increased oil imports, or I did the bare minimum to look like I was doing something?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the
Well,
Prime
Mr
Minister.
Speaker, I think we would say one of the successful things we did was keep the Labor Party out of government so that they didn't pursue a reckless climate change policy that was bad for the economy, that shut down our major emitters and hobbled our farming sector so it couldn't compete.
Question